The morning unfolded in our quiet cul-de-sac, just like every other day until Grandpa burst into the kitchen, grumbling under his breath. I was only halfway through my bowl of cereal when he muttered, "She's done it again." I didn't need to ask who. It was Karen. Karen, our relentlessly zealous HOA president, had turned the neighborhood into her personal obsession, determined to make every lawn and mailbox look straight out of a glossy real estate ad. No garden gnome escaped her disapproval. No holiday lights dared to glow after PM. But this time, her latest violation felt different, more invasive, more personal. Grandpa dropped a sheet of paper onto the table with a sharp slap. It was a note in elegant, looping cursive on official HOA stationery. The message explained that the 2 trucks now sitting in our garage belonged to her nephew, who was visiting from out of state for a short while. There was no phone number provided, no prior notice. Nothing, just a spare key slipped under our doormat and those enormous vehicles parked inside. Engines still warm, completely blocking Grandpa's woodworking shop. Grandpa rarely raised his voice. He never needed to. But that morning, a quiet fury simmered behind his bifocals. I trailed him out to the driveway. Sure enough, there they sat. 2 hulking diesel beasts reversed into our garage as if they belonged there. He stared in silence for a long minute. Then, without a word, he pressed the garage door remote, lowered the door, and secured the side entrance with a firm click. "She can retrieve them herself after she explains this to the police," he said evenly. I gaped at him. "You're actually calling the police?" "She trespassed," he replied. "That's breaking and entering. Those trucks are sitting on private property. She treated our home like free public parking. She's about to discover what private property truly means." By a.m., Karen was marching back and forth across our driveway, yelling into her phone and hammering on the closed garage door. She turned to look outraged, as though we were the ones who had crossed a line. "You can't do this," she shrieked. "This is theft." Grandpa sat on the porch, calmly sipping his coffee. "I haven't touched your trucks," he said. "I'm simply securing my own property. The police can handle the rest." And handle it they did after a tense, awkward confrontation that left the local officer visibly perplexed. Karen brandished her HOA badge like it carried federal authority, while Grandpa quietly pulled up the ring camera footage showing her using the hidden key to open our garage and drive the trucks inside without consent. The officer turned to her. "Ma'am, this is trespassing. Technically, it amounts to unlawful entry." Karen's mouth fell open. And that was only the start. She wasn't accustomed to hearing the word no, especially not from someone like Grandpa. Calm, precise, and completely unfazed by her usual mix of fake politeness and subtle intimidation. After the officer issued her a stern warning and ordered her to remove the vehicles at once, she stormed back across the lawn like an angry storm cloud balanced on beige high heels. The trucks vanished by noon. But the real trouble was only shifting into a higher gear. That afternoon, every resident's inbox received an explosive HOA email with the subject line dripping with outrage. "Emergency HOA meeting tonight, neighborhood security breach." Grandpa didn't even blink when he read it. "She's twisting the story," he said, peering over his shoulder. "Trying to paint you as the villain. Let her try," he murmured, gently polishing his old military medals. "If she wants a battle, she chose the wrong opponent." By PM, the normally deserted HOA clubhouse was standing room only. Karen positioned herself at the front like a fallen politician, flanked by 2 uneasy board members. She launched into her carefully rehearsed account, heavy on distortion and light on facts. "I was simply providing temporary storage for my nephew's vehicles, only 24 hours as a neighborly favor," she declared with theatrical flair. "Unfortunately, one resident chose to lock them inside his garage and escalate the matter by calling law enforcement. That was an extreme and unnecessary reaction. We must restore trust in our community." Grandpa raised his hand. "May I respond?" Karen offered a brittle smile. Briefly, he stood. "I have clear security footage of you entering my private garage without permission and parking vehicles inside. That isn't a breach of trust, it's a violation of property rights. You abused your HOA authority to ignore boundaries. And I wasn't the only victim." Head swiveled. Whispers spread. It turned out several neighbors had their own quiet grievances. Karen's habit of stretching rules, slapping petty fines, conducting unannounced inspections. One resident admitted she had once tried to force a tenant out over curtains she deemed too bright and distracting. The room hummed with growing discontent. Karen's polished poise began to crack. "I move for a vote," Grandpa continued. "Effective immediately. The board must review the HOA president's conduct and impose clear restrictions on any unilateral actions, particularly those involving access to private property." Murmurs of approval rolled through the crowd. Karen's voice climbed, sharp and desperate. "This is nothing but a witch hunt." But it was already too late. The motion carried. For the first time in years, the woman who had governed the neighborhood like her private kingdom faced real oversight. As we left the meeting, Grandpa gave a low chuckle. "That went smoother than I anticipated." I glanced back at Karen, who was now frantically texting someone in the corner. "Yeah," I said, "but I have a feeling she's far from done." For the next 3 days, Karen went completely silent. No snide flyers in mailboxes. No accusatory HOA emails. No violation notices mysteriously taped to doors. Grandpa and I both recognized the stillness for what it was, the deceptive calm right before the real storm arrived. "She's plotting something," Grandpa muttered as he neatly arranged his tools in the now empty garage. Free of those intrusive trucks at last. Mark my words. And he was absolutely right. On the 4th day, the mailbox delivered a thick envelope. 5 separate HOA citations, everyone dated after that explosive emergency meeting. They hit him with absurd charges, improper lawn edging, excessive noise in the afternoon quiet hours, and even one claiming his flagpole stood 2 full feet taller than the approved maximum height. I stood beside him as he opened each envelope deliberately, his eyebrows climbing a fraction higher with every new ridiculous accusation. When he finished the last one, he let out a genuine laugh. "She's just hurling spaghetti at the wall now, hoping something sticks." "What's your plan?" I asked. "I'm going to give her precisely what she's craving," he replied with a calm nod. Attention and plenty of witnesses. The following day, he was on the phone for hours, methodically filing formal appeals against each violation and requesting public review hearings for every single one. Every email he sent went not just to the board, but carbon copied to the entire HOA mailing list. He attached clear, time-stamped photos proving none of the claims held water. But he didn't stop there. The next evening, our security camera alerted us once more. There was Karen again, this time lurking at the far end of our driveway after dark, phone illuminated in her hand. She paced for a solid 20 minutes, pausing now and then to snap photos of our yard, as though gathering evidence for a major lawsuit. At exactly p.m., a police cruiser rolled up. The officer knocked politely. "We received a noise complaint," he explained. "Caller reported power tools in use." Grandpa gestured toward his workbench in the open garage. Every tool sat silent and unplugged. "I've been in bed since 9, he said evenly. "Care to see the footage?" The officer gave a knowing chuckle. "Not the first bogus call we've had from this neighborhood. We'll log the report anyway." That was when Grandpa surprised everyone, including me. He invited the officer inside, poured him a fresh cup of coffee, and walked him through the entire saga. The unauthorized trucks in the garage, the forged key, the retaliatory citations. All of it. The officer listened carefully, jotted notes, and finally said he would pass the full details along to the city's civil harassment division. "She's escalating," I remarked once the officer had gone, "and she's doing it badly." "That's exactly what desperate people do," Grandpa answered, stepping out onto the porch. He gazed across the quiet street, where porch lights glowed softly, and distant sprinklers hissed. "The harder she pushes, the more she reveals herself." He paused, then added with quiet certainty, "And I've got one final move she won't see coming." Raised an eyebrow. "What kind of move?" He gave a small, knowing smile. "Let's just say this HOA is about to get a very different kind of president." The following week, Grandpa moved with purpose. He had no interest in petty revenge. What he wanted was real change and genuine accountability. When the HOA board publicly announced that due to multiple formal complaints, the president's position would be opened for a special election, Grandpa submitted his candidacy paperwork that very afternoon. Karen was furious. She had held the role unchallenged for 8 straight years. Our neighbor, Mrs. Cortez, leaned over the fence and whispered, "Nobody's ever had the nerve to run against her. But your grandfather? He's got real backbone." Campaign flyers appeared in mailboxes. Word traveled fast through the cul-de-sac. Grandpa kept his message straightforward and honest. His flyer simply stated, "No drama, no power trips, just a neighbor who values peace, privacy, and fair rules for everyone." Karen, predictably, launched an all-out war, door-to-door canvassing, glossy professional signs sprouting on every lawn, even a hired landscaping crew manicuring her yard for perfect photo ops. Election night arrived, and the clubhouse overflowed once more. Residents dragged in extra folding chairs. A few even carried popcorn. The atmosphere felt electric, like a small-town mayoral race crossed with primetime drama. Karen delivered her standard speech first, smooth, rehearsed, packed with vague phrases about community cohesion and structural harmony. Then Grandpa took the floor. He carried no notes. He didn't need them. "I served my country," he began simply. "I paid off this house with my own hands. I repair my own fences and bake cookies for my grandkids. What I don't do is misuse authority to intimidate people. That's what this vote is truly about, not me, not Karen, but the kind of neighborhood we all deserve to live in." The room erupted in applause. Karen rolled her eyes dramatically. "This isn't a popularity contest." "No," Grandpa replied evenly. "It's a matter of trust." Ballots were tallied right there on the spot. Grandpa won in a decisive landslide. Karen bolted from the room before the final count was even announced. One of the board members approached Grandpa and handed him a thick folder marked transition binder. Inside lay lists of duties, official documents, and a stack of unresolved complaints Karen had quietly buried for years. He flipped through the pages, then smiled. "Looks like we've got our work cut out for us." Later that night, we sat on the porch under a sky filling with stars. Grandpa sipped his sweet tea while crickets sang in the background. "She'll probably move away," I said. "She'll definitely file an appeal," he corrected gently. "But it won't change anything. She shattered the neighborhood's trust, and that's not something you rebuild overnight. Do you think she'll ever admit she was wrong?" He chuckled softly. "Not in a million years. But we don't need her confession." The trucks never return. The citations disappeared. And our garage stays peacefully empty except for Grandpa's toolbox and the handmade Karen Free Zone sign I hung on the wall. "If you loved seeing HOA." Karen finally taken down with classic Grandpa wisdom and calm resolve. Smash that like button. Got your own wild HOA nightmare? Share it in the comments. I read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe for more true stories of everyday revenge, neighborhood chaos, and those deeply satisfying moments of justice. Grandpa's story isn't over yet, and neither is the fun.